Hello. Here we go. Rolled my hair Sunday. This is Monday the 26th, August, something like that. Anyway, um, I watched my video the other day because I don't edit. I just like put it out there, right? And I didn't like myself very much. Matter of fact, I think I've made excuses for too long at saying that I am um, cynical, when in actuality that's just negativity. And the reason why I kind of wanted to do this, be finished fluffing, was I'd gotten into a heated discussion with my son, oldest of three. He's 41, and he's been working nights. Um, he gets off in the morning. He'll have a beer or two before he goes to sleep. He's a father. He's married, 20 years. Has 4 children. The oldest is 19. And it started off typical, good morning, and how are you, and how's work. And 2 years ago, his oldest, which is uh, I guess it didn't matter, but his oldest son was graduating, and he had a plan. He hadn't thought about college, he hadn't thought about anything. So my son is a um, inactive Marine. He did 2 tours in Afghanistan, and he suggested to him, this has been 2 years ago. At the time, he was 17, and one day, his wife and him had sat down, they'd signed papers. My grandson did too. One day after school, he came over here, and we talked for about 10 minutes, and I just said, well, it's not like locked in. He goes, oh, no, it's pretty much done. And I said, no, not until you're 18. I said, if you're indecisive at what you're doing, then don't do it. You know. Next day, I get a phone call like, hey, why aren't you supporting him? Blah, blah, blah. And like I said, this was 2 years ago. And it caught me off guard because I felt like I'm his grandmother, and I just had a conversation, and I didn't snap at that time, and I am now, that maybe I did influence him. So the conversation with my son led into, he was talking about how his son now, 2 years later, is saying, I think I made a mistake. And he's like, oh, you think? And he's like, well, getting on with his life and what to do. And I asked my son, I said, do you still kind of blame me? Do you think I played a part? And he didn't answer me directly. And it bothered me. It bothered me a lot. Because I don't like indirectness. And after a while, we just slowly got into it. And he finally said, Mom, why is it that you and I can't have a conversation? It's just like you had this bitterness. You had this, I just wanted to talk about work, and I just made a comment about what was going on. And I said, okay, I can look at that. I think there's one thing I haven't done in a while, which is take a real good look at myself like that. That's kind of this. It's kind of, if anybody wants to give me feedback, please do. Just, if you're going to cause or create something that's just not appropriate, in a way, how all that goes. But at this time of my life, and listening to what a video had said, I want to say that the other day when I paid homage to my friend Gay, that she passed away last week. And when I said she was my hero, and when I talked about how she had a bucket list, etc., I'm still doing that. I'm still processing about that loss. And grief is, one word that drives me nuts is closure, because someone tell me how that works. I know what the term means or the word means, But I think it's gotten overly, people just use it because they've heard it. And they just use it not thinking, you know, it's just an overused word in reference to grief or relationships or whatever you're going to use it in. And for me, I've had losses since I was young, and they form you, they create, they some of the worst decisions I've ever made and mistakes I've made ended up making me a better person. And I think watching that video reminds me that I like people in general. I'm not as cynical as I say I am. It's kind of like a defense mechanism, acting like I'm all that, and I don't care what you think. And it's not that I don't care. It's that, because when I said I didn't care or make decisions, I did. I thought of others before I made those decisions, and I thought what the outcome could be. Not always, but I've tried to live my life, though, without, the cumbersomeness of, I'm going to do the right thing because, it isn't going to hurt this person or that person or make them look bad. Hurt, yes. That's part of the 12-step program, and I've been clean since July 5th of 1990. And alcoholism has been a big part of my family. And in part of the 12-step program, it talks about you can make amends to people as long as it's not going to do any harm. And part of not just making amends, but also part of that being self-ish. They kind of go together. Learning about who you are and what that ultimate outcome can be. And for me, I'm still learning on every day. Every day. Part of us as human beings, we have that ability to adapt. We have that ability to change. We have those choices. It's free will. And when I said I did this for posterity, that's part of it, because I have chosen where I'm at today, and I know what depression can do, and I have a plethora of information for myself on how to get myself out of that. And one of these, rolling my hair, throwing some makeup on. I do art. I forgot at 60 that I could draw and do all those things because I learned it young, and I went on with life, and it was a hobby that was a luxury. And now those are things I do to occupy myself so I don't stay in my head, so I don't have those negative thoughts. Or there's a YouTuber out there that I watch, and it's interesting because he kind of reminds me of my son. Political aspirations, all that. That's another thing. It's just, we're so opposite, but I like that pro and con of things, and I like that the difference. I mean, what would we be if we didn't have those challenges in acceptance even of people of who we are? Because, for example, I was 40 when I met my partner. And I know this is not something that a lot of people understand, especially the millennials or today, because there's so many labels. But I'm not gay. I didn't look at women. I find they're beautiful, but when I met the woman I'm with today, I had been married twice. I had never been, I was finding myself attracted to one or two that I worked with. It's kind of like, But 22 years later, and with adjusting my children and my life and what they even went through many moons ago of those choices I made, that's what I mean by I did care. And it was a conversation we had all the time. And then when grandkids came, today there's one or two just proud. I'm like, no, 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 no. It's like there's so many that I had to look up what cisgender was. Didn't know. And I thought, okay, so there's transgender, but it's cis, so that way you don't get confused if you just, it's just too much for me sometimes. Oh, and also besides the art I write, and I don't just personally journal because I've always done that. I've journaled all my life. And I'm trying to get some lighting, it's better in here. And I have snail mail. I have a lot of pen pals. Where in the hell was I going with that? So besides, in writing, I've actually had poetry published, and writings and essays and things. For me, those are the things that I utilized and have utilized more so. That the creativity, the getting stuff out of my head, but the actual movement of the actual getting up and out and about is something that my car broke down 2 years ago. I had my baby PT Cruiser, and when I say broke, I was going over big bridge, big water. I live southeast in Texas, southeast Houston, and just rolled right on down this huge expansion bridge, and it wasn't a timing belt or something, and I love that car. And I've never been able to get back in a place where I can not afford the notes. And if I get money for a vehicle, something else comes up that's got to be done. And so I've Ubered or have relied on, and that independence being taken away from me has highly affected me to be even where I'm at today. So when I have priorities, most of the time I've had to have plumbing, I've had an air conditioner. Those are things, and owning a home that's a reality. And me getting this fixed, or me having a car, and it's the first time in my life. And it's humbling. But I think that all that combined has made me really caustic. And I don't like that part. Because I'm very easygoing in some ways. Most ways. I love to read. Books have saved my life, all my life. I had a hard time adapting to Kindle, and then the reading part of it, and then my kids got me a Kindle Fire, and I felt like a traitor. But I do the combination. I still have my hardbacks. I have first editions of a lot that I have had all my, since, God, probably early high school. Some I've just collected over the years. I'm a Stephen King nut. You got to read Mr. Mercedes. For those of you who think he's nothing but horror, because he's not. He never has been. Obviously Green Mile and Shawshank Redemption. Those are Shawshank, I think, came out of a short story, and it was I forget which. I'm trying to think of Half Past Midnight. I think that was one of the books. Anyway, I digress. So I wanted to kind of clear up that absolute nasty person you heard. It just was having a, middle of the night rant on top of, I'm not that mean. I can't be. Yeah, I can't be. And boy, if I want to cut you, that's one thing. JU competition. Drag queens. Couldn't do it. I wouldn't piss a drag queen off. They cut so deep, I'm like, ooh. So, thought I'd say that. And just thanks for watching. Okay. Peace out.